Well, everybody's doing a review of this and that at 50 hours, 100 hours, stuff like that. So here's a new one. This is a Kubota BX23. Technically, it's a 23D from about 2006. It's a BT600 backhoe on it, LA210 loader, and I've had this thing for many years. And so this is actually a 1,500 hour review. How much better does it get than that? But I'll start little walk around it, tell you some history on the thing. This is a little bit of a tough day because I'm actually going to sell it today. A guy's coming in about an hour, and I thought, man, I never really did a review on this thing, but what an amazing machine. So I'll start a tour here in a second. So I think the best thing for a tour is actually to go to the core of whatever it is first. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the motor first. Motor, transmission, that really main core of the tractor. That's what keeps everything else running. So there's not a lot to say. I haven't had trouble with it. 1,500 hours, 1,000 hours like that helped me, show me how to lash the valves on top and do some basic diesel engine maintenance that anybody should do, but he knows a lot more than me, and I learned some stuff from him on it. But there are no leaks. It runs consistent, runs great even after a fuel outage, which I've done a couple times. You get the air out, it's really not far to do. So I really haven't had to get in here and do a lot of parts. I've never had to do any repair on these. These are actually, even though it says on the maintenance schedule, you know, replace this radiator hose at so many hours, that's 1,500 hours old. That's 1,500 hours old. Simple to get to air filter, that gets changed. One of the issues that I have had, matter of fact, I'm tightening it right now. This bracket for the air filter broke a long time ago. It's loose now. It actually needs a wrench. Give me a second here. I'm actually going to do that. I'll tighten it up by hand. I can't do this with two hands, but I ended up taking the bracket, reinforcing it, welding it, but it really needed a 2-point better bracket system than that, but that was just home fixable. Let me swing over to the other side. Alternator's good. Belt's good, but I always keep a spare fan belt, oil filter, hydraulic filter, just a lot of spare parts anytime I go with 2 fuel filters, because I'm going to actually go around. Now, never mind this snow plow on the front. That was a potential project one day to rig up the hydraulics on that, make me a new mount for a snow movement on this thing. But let's go down to the fuel. So there's a fuel filter right here. That is a pain to get to. So the difference between this older 23 and like the 25 and 23S that's out now is the way that you access the hood. This is springs, but if I need to really get in there and work on some things, I've got to take out this panel and slide this out the front. That's one of the reasons that the brush guard is not on the front a lot of the times. It's actually on the back of the trailer for this person to have, but I really need it out of the way to remove this sometimes. So it's hard to get to the fuel filter, but you do have to get this out of the way. Or you can get one of the relocation kits that brings the fuel filter here. Now the other part of the fuel system, we'll see if we can get under there and look, is right there. So here is the first fuel filter. This is the fuel pump. And that one's not bad to get to, but again, you got to get underneath. But with the backhoe and the arms, that's pretty easy to jack up the back end and then put blocks under it, and then you got a little more room to work. All right, so how would I know, except for the preventative maintenance schedule, when I would know that I need to change the fuel filter in the lowest portion or the second fuel filter here, is you'll start seeing some white sputtering smoke coming out of the exhaust in the front, or a little bit of plop, 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 plop sound occasionally. That's the flow demand can't quite keep up because the filter is occluded. So it can't keep up with the demand with the fuel. So once that starts, I've got 2 options. I've either got to lower the RPMs so I'm not consuming as much fuel and it balances the amount that can get through, or I need to stop pretty soon. If it starts doing it bad, I just need to go and change the fuel filters. But that is serviceable in the field. I always carry 2 of them in a box in the back, 2 extra fuel filters, stop, change them out, let the air purge out, and just keep going. But again, everything on the motor was just been fantastic. I haven't had any injector problems for 1,500 hours. I haven't had a water pump go out. I haven't had anything happen to this engine. It is an amazing Kubota engine. Next part, talk a little bit about the hydrostatic transmission, or basically let's call it the hydraulic pump and that part of the system. But it did remind me there was one thing with the motor that I did forget to mention, but it's interrelated with a repair I did once from the motor to here that was an issue that I had to deal with, is I've had to replace motor mounts. So the motor started, vibrating more and more and more. Out of the front here is I keep calling it the prop shaft, but it is the drive shaft that's running from the motor or from the engine back underneath the pan, back to drive the hydraulic pump. Once the motor started vibrating a lot more up here, it actually ended up messing up the splines on the shaft, which caused it not to pump back here in the hydrostatic transmission. So that was a pretty easy fix. I'll see if I can crop over a photo. Actually, Dad was helping me with this one too. He happened to be in at the time, and we built just a little crossbar to hold up the engine while we were getting there replacing the mounts. But then that solved the problem. But I did have to put in a new drive shaft. When I say drive shaft, it's not the same. I'm gonna get underneath here and show you that. Okay, we are underneath. There's the oil pan, right? I can't even find my finger. There's the oil pan. And right out of the back, it's kind of hard to see, and it's right up in here, going above that pan. Now that is the drive shaft going to the front, little pillow block and U-joint that's going to the front four-wheel drive. But up above that is the shaft that's going to, see if we can see, okay, you see the fan there? That is where that shaft comes into the hydrostatic transmission. Of course, that fan actually helps cool. So that whole assembly right there had to be taken out, and you can't get it out the bottom. So I'm going to switch back to the top here. Okay, so we did have to get that shaft out, we actually had to take out the floor pan, disconnect the pedal, blah, 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 and get this this assembly here. So we actually took the shaft out of the top, replace it, no problem. Now, the thing is, that wouldn't have had to been replaced, that shaft, if I had caught the engine mounts early. It wouldn't have caused the damage on the splines of the shaft going in and all that. But yeah, that's just something to learn for the future. But wasn't too bad to replace, but it was a little bit of a pain. But so basically, this whole system down in here, this is driving anything to do with the wheels, with your traction, but it's also the hydraulic pump for the backhoe, for the loader. Everything comes out of this. So one of the problems that I did like, or I should say like on the new BX kind of models, we're going to try to see now to check your hydraulic fluid and to fill it is back in there where you can't hardly see. It is a red cap. It is horrible to get to. I always kind of hated that. And the hydraulic oil check is actually right here. Let's see. You can see the dipstick right there. And it is not easy to kind of get in and out either, but it's doable. But I have to have a flex funnel. And what I'll do when I fill hydraulic, the UDT fluid in this container beneath here, is put a pin in here, put the funnel through here, put a pin in, hold it in place. That's actually what this is for here too, but it eventually works. Now I believe, well, several years ago, so part of the initial break, I can't remember if it was 50 or 100 hours at this point, but part of the hydraulic transmission, you'll have to take off, jack it up, take off this wheel, and at the base down there at the point, there is a screen pull out. That's the screen intake for the pump, and that may have some shavings initially from the factory. But when I've checked that again, when I've been doing hydraulic fluid changes and filter changes, I checked that screen, and I really have never seen anything else on the screen. That's been a good sign. So have I had a hydraulic leak or two? Yes I have. Occasionally I've lost a hydraulic line. You can already see some things here. We'll talk about that a little bit more on the backhoe. The things that I've protected, some lines that I have changed. But the stuff towards the loader, all of that stuff, all those lines are original. All of those have been good the whole time, even out to the loader cylinder. So all in all, the hydraulic transmission side of it has been good. Now, people did say this, how often have I used the Kubota UDT fluid, Super UDT? Used it for a very long time. I'm gonna say till after about 1,000 hours. Then I switched over to some of the Traveler, Universal, and I noticed after about 50 hours in of using it, I started getting creep. In other words, the pedal was adjusted right, but the tractor would want to creep forward more and more and more and more and more while it was sitting idle. And I'd read some forum posts that was an issue with certain other kind of fluid, and I thought, well, I'll do a change here in about 200 or 300 hours again. And I waited, and it did the creep the whole time. I switched back to UDT, and the creeping stopped. I mean, everything was adjusted properly, but it did seem to make a difference. But it's been Super UDT, I'm going to say, for 70% of its life. That's been good. So hydraulic system, thumbs up. All right, now onto we'll call it the operator station. Shoot, this is where we sit all the time. So how about the seat? This is not the OEM seat. It actually has a drain, which is awesome. I just ordered that online. I actually got an OEM replacement seat one time, and it didn't seem to last long with the sun. I've had, this has the spring and everything for it and the lever for switching around to the backhoe, but as you can see, this was too weak from the factory, this bar right here. So I welded another plate beneath that to reinforce it. So this was stiffer. It was bending. So that wasn't good. But I have had to take put some WD-40 underneath on the little nylon bushing so it turns better. But there's a lot of times I just kind of kneel back on the seat and run the backhoe if it's just a short, 15-second thing instead of messing with the seat. Moves back and forth. It does swivel. A little bit of a pain. I've had issues with the safety switch on here. That's been a little bit of a pain. But overall, the seat's okay, distance-wise with it. All the controls have been good. Sometimes between low and high speed, it would really stick kind of hard and a little bit annoying, but most of the time good. Everything with four-wheel drive in and out fine. The pedal, some people don't like these pedals, some do. I got used to this pedal, and that is the same exact kind that is in my MX6000 over there. So I like the quick sliding back and forth with my foot when I'm doing close-in work. I like that. Now, when I've been on BX24s, 25s, and even the 23, I think everything else seems to have it goes down beneath the floor pan. So you have the forward coming up, and you have the reverse up, and I catch my heel on it. So I like this older pedal. Emergency brake, I've had to replace a spring in that because it just wouldn't release well. There is a grease zerk on this if this starts getting sticky. But back up to here, you've got the area to get to the battery, a little bit tight, but not too bad. Of course, with the rear facing engine, you get the air pulled through here, which this is where you're going to get the clog up of grass or stuff if you're doing some hay baling, or not hay baling, but brush mowing or something. Gauges, dash, all this pretty good. Now, one time I was on maintenance, I actually got some WD-40 down in this cable, just wanted to get it a little bit smoother, and then actually got it too smooth. It would move so easily that this thing would just kind of vibrate into another position. So I actually had to keep kind of wiping out some of the fluid. But let me go around to the other side. Probably the most problem I've had has been in this area. A lot of these switches they're just not that good. Lights kind of faded out. Hour meters there, 1,486. But pretty much that on the operator station. Overall pretty good. I really haven't used the PTO a lot. The only other thing, if you look down in here, you see some screws and some stuff. There used to be a cup holder here. That was a bad design. It didn't have a drain in the bottom of it. So one day I said, well, I'll make some holes in it. And I did. And that's when I realized that there's a fuel tank underneath it. And I was leaking fuel, and I thought I had busted a hydraulic line. But that's what we had to fix. And that has stayed good fix for 1,000 hours now, I guess. Some actually fuel epoxy and some screws in the holes that I put in, and then I just left the cup holder out. Broke off this at some point for the mower height, but I don't have a mower. But operator station, to me, comfortable. Seat belt, not good. It's not even on here right now. It would lock up so much and lock up I couldn't hardly use it. I've never had really good luck with the Kubota seat belts. Engine's great, seat belts, junk. I just don't like them. But operator station. Before I move on to the backhoe and loader, I'm going to talk about tires. Obviously, these are not the original tires for 1,500 hours. You see a little bit of different tread, a little bit of the original like bar tread, R4, and a different kind of design in the front. For that, I'm going to go ahead and go over to the trailer and show you some other tires that we've been through and some pressures and what has really worked well for this. All right, so the good news for the guy that's buying this today, there are actually some spare tires, 1, 2 front ones, a third front one, and a rear one that is loaded with ballast. But here's a little bit of history on tires with this thing. This is a lot closer to what was on here for the OEM. And if I look closely, it's kind of worn, but we've got fill to 22 PSI. These have, I can't remember looking, seeing what the sidewall thickness was, but a problem with these tires is when you have a heavy load in the bucket and you make a sharp turn, you start trying to roll the bead a lot more. In fact, this is aired down. So if you have a thinner sidewall, and every little bit that it works to open this bead right here, and you get silty, muddy stuff in there, you can't get it back out. So eventually you start getting some tire leaks or some air leaks right around the rim, and that is a lot due to this. Now, I bought these years ago. I've swapped off and we're still at the same area, but these are actually 8-ply tires. These have a very, very thick sidewall, and if you can see here, these are filled to 100 PSI. So when you start doing a loader bucket with this, you don't have the sidewall give, letting that sediment and silt and whatever kind of mud stuff get in the rim that way. So that's pretty cool. Can't remember which one this one. I think these are 22 PSI. This is one of the other 100 PSI ones. So actually the rim is pretty good on that one. This one could go on right now as a spare. But if you look to the inside of this one, you can see where the inner part where this was stamped. Oh, things are actually much, much heavier than the OEM type tires. But boy, you can see the split. I mean, it was coming apart. And so this tire is actually good. The rim is bad. So I'm sending that too. Here's another spare tire for him. Now the good thing is I built a tire changer at the shop for a lot of lawn tractor and these type tires here, and I could actually break the bead on these. The machine I kind of made would go around, get the tire off, and it would reseat the bead. It worked great with these, but it would not work with this. This is so much of a tougher tire. I had to take it to a tire shop and get them to put them on. I could not get the rim over that, everything. But so there's some history on tires. These Skid Power HD BTK, and these are 18 by 8.5/10. But look for those 8-ply 100 PSI ones, and you can't go wrong with the tires on that. All right, move on to the loader, the BT600. Awesome backhoe. Very impressed. I was always impressed with the design of how this actually unmounts from the tractor. Probably, once you understand what's going on with it and how to set it, it has been maybe a 2-minute drill to get this. I back it up to where I'm going to place it. I'll actually get in and put the bucket down, put the stabilizers down, put those down on the ground, and then once I release the pins, it's using the hydraulics to tilt it back and then lift itself off of there, shut the tractor off, disconnect the hydraulics, and move. And it's actually pretty fluent. So these have been great. Speed's okay. I actually like the levers, the length of these levers compared to some of the newer BX models that are much longer. It seems like the station seems kind of weird to me, and the operator station for that, because I'm used to this. Shorter stroke, really good feathered control, progressive kind of flow out of them has been good. If you have to work on the hydraulics, which I've definitely had to work on the hydraulics in the backhoe, and I'll try to crop over some pictures of stuff that's been done. But there's one huge thing that you'll notice with this tractor, and that is this dark area right here and in there. That was a pretty major repair. My friend Scott Jones, I'm going to call you out because it was just a good, amazing fix here. But this is one of the things that did happen. This thing has done heavy work. I started getting a split and a fracture here on the backhoe and around this junction here. So my friend straightened, took this plate. So this is an entire, so like 1/4 inch thick plate that's going the whole way down, well past that. Good weld all the way around, and then re-welded the seam around this part, and that's been probably 500 hours ago, and no trouble with that. But anytime that you've got that, you've also got the wear inside of a backhoe arm where it's moving and coming out. So I have had to replace some hydraulic lines. So replacing those, once you take this panel off, that's easy to take that panel off. But right now, I'll put over the picture, top the picture what this looks like with the panel off. But if it's the middle hose, to get a line wrench on there, you've pretty much got to take the lines off next to it so you can get the wrench on it, which is kind of a pain. But what I did do with this thing is you'll see some extra bundling. That is some more hydraulic hose wrap and wire tied to give it some more protection as it goes through this. It's going through a turn up into to distribute to the cylinders, so that has additional protection while it was off. And in a couple places inside here, there's actually some old fire hose that actually is given some more. I do have a hydraulic leak here at the connection point. Actually, you can see right here it is wet on the cloth. That's this connection here. I think really just the end needs replaced there, but easy to get to that part, not bad at all. But overall, the bucket's wearing, but it's pretty good to go. Well, remember I said I didn't have that much trouble with the hydraulic lines? Little break since the last little video clip, but actually what happened was I came to maybe buy this thing and was taking it for a test drive. Went around a little bit and back here and started using the backhoe, and kaploosh, hydraulic line went. Made a mess, and boy, what timing. I mean, amazing timing for stuff. So had to take a break, run into town. These two right here are the OEM. Those are the original ones. That is the feed supply to the backhoe control valve stuff, main in and out. These are the two new ones. So let's take a look. On this one here, boy, you can see a good, see if we can get that focused. Got a good split right in there. And this one, let's see if we can find, yeah, big old one blue there. Both of them, I'd say one of them was probably weeping, and the one that just went today was bad. So actually, this is a higher rated, this is 6,000 PSI hose here on this baby. But they made it the same way, same connectors. And I just went ahead and decided, I mean, somebody hopefully will be buying this thing in the next few days, but I went ahead and decided I'm putting new quick couplings on there. And honestly, I didn't like the looks of the fluid that much. It had a little more stuff in the backhoe here that hadn't been used for a while. I thought, you know what, I'm just going to go ahead and get another bucket of hydraulic oil. I've got the hydraulic filter already. I'm going to go ahead and do a fluid change on this anyway. I don't know if anybody that buys this will really care or really know that I just did this, but I'll feel better about it after doing this. But I'm going to put it down. I'm not going to video during changing out the hose. I do have to do some routing, but you can see right now with that plate off, that's what I was talking about a little bit earlier. This is where we're hooking. This is the main supply for the valve. But if you get something here, you've pretty much got to take these off to get to that middle part. And I've enjoyed, actually not enjoyed, but one of the best things besides a line wrench is getting in there with a crow's foot. Works good with a ratchet. Get in there. But let me shut up. This really got me off track today. So let me get these hoses bundled back together. We've got some new sheath cover that I'm going to wrap around it, protect it. wire ties, some gloves. This is the funnel we were talking about. We'll show that in a little bit, putting some in, but let me get started on this. So here's one of the important things about having an actual service manual that has all the detail in it. Well, it's going to be missing a couple things always, but this is very detailed for every section. So I'm into the hydraulic system in the back of it right now. But what I didn't mark is just seeing which line was from tank, which one was pump. And we'll actually start here. This is the control valve that I just looked at there, just showed you. And over on the left side, you'll see the T and the P. The T is for tank, so that's what's going back to the reservoir tank. And the P is for pump. That's what's coming from the hydraulic pump. So what we just need to do is figure out which one of those is at the connection to the back. And if you look at this test here, it'll stay in the instructions here, number 4, connect the power hose and flow meter inlet port, and it's talking about putting that to the from the pump and then back into the tank. So I'm going to go over here and show you the actual hose that's there when the backhoe's not on, and this will make a little more sense. All right, we're here at the back of the tractor. So this connection right here is actually coming, it looks a little bit blurry, from the tank, or excuse me, from the pump, pumping through here. And if I don't have the backhoe on, this is also responsible for flow for the drive of the transmission. So when I don't have the backhoe on, this is just hooked up there, and that flow is coming from the pump back into the tank, but it needs this circuit to be completed to drive to do everything else. All we're doing when we put the backhoe on is this is now going to get connected to the male fitting, and then the longer hose is going to be coming back up onto this side and hook into there, so that you keep the solid flow. So that's all it is. I just wanted to make sure that of which one was top and bottom on the control circuit there, just to make sure. So I'm gonna go ahead and get these on. All right, hoses are on, connected there, and new and connected to the old one that crossed over a little bit ago that I showed you. The lines are on back there. So what we're gonna do is start getting the hydraulic fluid back in the transmission or in the pump and do this. But here you can see the kind of funnel that you're going to need. In fact, it's such a pain to get that cap out back in there. You can only get about a half turn or so. You can't really turn your wrist all the way to get in there, but then you've got the little hook that holds the funnel. Let me start pouring in. All right, so I've already went through a couple function checks, cycled each one of these cylinders a few times. Back here, just moving back and forth. Turned it off, rechecked the level. We're actually up good on the mark right now. So the good news is nothing's leaking. I definitely want to check that connection there, both of those on the end, before I put this plate back on and every other place, but everything looks good. So the good thing is I can actually get to show you how this thing goes on. Now the cradle, this orange bar that's in the cradle, at this point, if I was taking this off, all I'm going to do is use the stabilizers and lift it up off of that cradle, then disconnect the hoses, pull away from it after you reconnect. But I'm getting ready to put it back on. So if you'll see, now I do have some pictures. Sorry if the wind's blowing. I actually did re-weld these here. I put new posts on and then remounted this. It always seemed kind of tight. Now they're actually a lot better. So what we're hoping will happen is, as soon as this bar right there hits in that teeth, when those move back, this bar should slide up in there. We'll see, and that's what kind of keeps it secure. So let's give it a shot. Okay, so what I'm doing is just using the backhoe part. It's just pivoting it forward. And I've got this just on idle. Let's see if we can see this work here. Bam. It's such a cool little system. Now the only thing I'll need to do next is underneath here. See a little cotter key? That keeps it from moving out of this slot here. And then I'll do the other side, but the backhoe is secure again. That's how easy it is. What a great system. Well, all good to go. I'm going to run it again just before I leave, but I can't even remember what I forgot when I was doing the walk around for the 1500 hour review, but well, it's awesome. I think one of the things, if you point out all these little lights, the lollipop lights and all that, those are probably going in the first 100 to 200 hours there. If you work around a brush and a limb or something like that, these really should have been designed with some type of a protective cage around them a little bit. In fact, that's the same way if you look on my MX6000, lollipop on the right side, and there's not one on the left side. Actually, the back side of it's broken. That was from the heavy brush video that we did, but the back side of that's going off of it. It really needs a protective cage around it as well. So it's little things like that, I think, in design. But overall, would I buy this tractor again? If that fit my need for the specifications that I was looking for, yeah, absolutely. I trust Kubota with a lot of their stuff. I think the next series that I was really planning on doing with this thing is getting from everything attachments, getting the conversion to a quick attach in the front, so that I could buy a new bucket or some other implements, snowplow or something like that, to go on the front. But overall, 1500 hours, what a baby. Who knows, maybe if somebody doesn't come soon and offer the right thing on it, I may just keep it, but just time. Got too many other things to working on. I got a job tomorrow. I'll try to film some of that. One of the friends is going to be with me with the drone, and well, this is it. Would I recommend it? Absolutely. Y'all have a good evening. Take care.